Welcome to the Toronto Sports Rush channel, brought to you by the Bet Rivers Network. The Toronto Maple Leafs have just left the ice, defending home soil against the Utah Mammoth. And Pierre, we got a lot to talk about tonight, but I want to begin with stating that, I don't think the Maple Leafs will lose many games when Nylander, Matthews, Nyes, and Tavares all find the back of the net.
Well, that's very good. I'm going to pay you for that advice because it's really good. Kyle, I think the biggest thing that I see, though, with the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight was a team that had a game plan. They weren't going to turn pucks over. They were going to get pucks in deep. They were going to be aggressive on the forecheck. They weren't going to give up too many odd man rushes. They were going to be diligent in their own zone. They weren't going to spend a lot of time defending. They wanted to attack. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that happened tonight is the four-line center depth. Matthews, Tavares, Roy, and then Scott Lawton into the lineup. I really think it changed a lot of the complexion of this Toronto Maple Leafs team tonight.
I'd be very curious to know what the locker room conversation was in the Monday night game with Pittsburgh after the second period, because they had an absolutely regrettable first two periods. And then, as they've done all season long, an extremely strong third period. Coming into tonight, they were the worst team in the NHL in the second period for goal differential, the second best in the third period. They only improved upon both of those numbers tonight, of course. But they played three pretty good periods of hockey. The first was a bit pedestrian tonight, but no damage done. Second and third period, they were very good.
I totally agree. The biggest thing is we're not giving Utah enough credit, Kyle.
Yeah.
Utah's a good team. They're fast. They have a great counterattack game. They really prey on turnovers, and they take advantage of their opportunities. Tonight, I thought Toronto did a pretty good job limiting those turnovers. They were playing a disciplined game. They didn't take a lot of penalties. When they did, they were able to be very smart and productive in terms of how they killed it off. But I like what you just said, because the truth of the matter is the first 40 minutes of the Pittsburgh game were really bad. We didn't see anything really bad tonight. We saw a very competitive team that played to a game plan and to an identity that they're trying to forge. I thought it was good.
So, looking at the way they played tonight, looking at the fact that all the A-listers came out to play, there's a lot of Maple Leafs we'll talk about tonight that had very good games. I definitely want to talk about Michelli returning to the lineup tonight against his old team. He had a fantastic game. But what are the signs we saw that this team may be definitely turning around, or there's still a lot of work to go here? They got to run a few in a row, don't they, at this level?
Well, there's work to do still, and I still don't think this is the final roster. I really don't. I think long-term you're going to see some substantial roster fluctuation with this group. Obviously, not having Chris Tanev hurts him a little bit when it comes to defending. I think you would agree with that. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is I liked most of their game. Solid in faceoffs. They were much better than Utah. Not a lot of turnovers, especially in the neutral zone. They were much better than Utah. And I think the biggest thing is they were playing as a group. They weren't disconnected. They were more connected tonight, coming out of their own zone, which I thought was really good, Kyle.
I see a few things that I'd like to have this team improve upon. One of them is they're still not firing a lot of shots, not getting a lot of pucks on net, Pierre. And I don't think they were as physically aggressive as the style we heard they'd be playing as they intended to be this season tonight. Mm-hmm. But they still got the job done despite those things. Stolarz was good in net. He got beat on that second goal. It wasn't great, but he just didn't pick the puck up. The Leafs looked bad on the third goal, but, we're in garbage time at that point with a 5-2 lead. What else are you seeing from this team that needs to turn around?
Well, the physicality is better without taking penalties, number one. I think that's really important. The bump and grind game is pretty good. When you can get Dakota Joshua going, you can get Nick Roy going, you can get Scotty Lawton going, you can get Matt Domi going. It makes a big difference. And Lorenz being back in the lineup too, I think helps a lot. So I see positives on that front, which is kind of more to the identity that they want to play with. I still think they can get a little bit more skill and a little bit more tempo out of their top line, especially I think from Matthew Nyes. I know Matthew Nyes scored in the game. It was an empty net goal. I think he has more pace in his game to give. And I don't know if he's hurt, because if he is hurt, maybe that would explain some of what we're seeing. But I think he has more pace to give to this team.
Pierre, that is very well said, because you can always tell when a player's pace needs to pick up, especially players like Nyes, because you just don't hear his name mentioned a lot in the broadcast, which means he's not first to the puck anymore, which means he's not controlling the puck and he's not getting to the puck. So more to come from him for sure. Good to see him on the scoreboard. Let's talk about the game Matias Michelli had tonight, because I thought he was fantastic in returning to the lineup. Kind of a statement game from him, wasn't it?
I love the reaction of his after he scored. It's like, see, I told you guys.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. I like the way he distributed the puck. I like how he was first to a lot of pucks. I like the way he protected the puck. I know he was on the ice for the garbage time goal, which I'm sure they'll want to talk about. But the truth of the matter is that that's more like the player I was expecting when he came over from Utah. So no, it was positive for him. I thought it was a good night for the Leafs, great night for their fans, and I think the front office deserves a lot of credit because finally we saw an acknowledgement of the 500th goal by John Tavares, which I think had been so muted for so long. I was shocked by it.
Yeah, Pierre, we were talking earlier today about Tavares with Dan, and the lack of conversation around this milestone achievement.
Mm.
I'm of the opinion that you watch John Tavares play, for all the accolades he's achieved and stuff. I think this guy has been underrated criminally for a lot of his career, and he still is in this later stage of his career. He's playing top flight hockey right now. He's been the best player in the Leafs this season, with the exception of
He,
maybe Nylander, who hasn't played all the games.
one of the biggest thing, Kyle, and I agree with that. One of the biggest thing about him is he's been one of the most consistent players in the National Hockey League, not just in Toronto. You look at him game in and game out, whomever his line mates might be, Kyle, he makes every single one of them better, whether it's winning faceoffs, moving the puck, getting bodies to the net, creating rebound opportunities. He's been fantastic. He's tremendous in his own zone. He's not a risk at all deep in his own zone. You can play him at the end of a period to defend a lead. So, no, I think he's been really consistent. I was really tipped my hat to the Leafs and the way they did that presentation last night. I watched it all. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that, bringing his whole family out on the ice, presenting them all with something, and acknowledging a milestone that while he didn't get them all with the Leafs, he's got a lot of important ones with this hockey team. And let's be very clear about this. He's not done at 500. This guy's got a couple of seasons left in him for sure, and he's going to be scoring goals at this clip for a while because of the way he plays.
I couldn't agree more. And the thing that I like about John, it's so understated. It's amazing
Yeah.
how understated he makes it look so effortless. But really, quite frankly, it's the peripheral vision, the puck protection skills, and the strength in the puck that help him be this player that we're all used to seeing. And it really is special to watch.
Austin Matthews got on the scoreboard tonight with a very Austin Matthews type of goal, the type
Mhm.
of goals we've been used to seeing him. Two notes on that is what I just said, and he scored that type of goal. No more empty netter stuff. That was a absolute howitzer, top shelf. But the way the fact that he got that pass from Michelli, just that combination is something the Leafs fans talked about preseason. We haven't seen a lot this year. How important is it for these guys to be mixing in and getting these setups, getting these assists on the big guns goals?
Well, it's the tail end of a shift for Austin Matthews, the beginning of the shift for Michelli, which I thought was really interesting. And you could see Austin, he knows what pure goal scorers do when they get the puck. They get it, they grip it,
Yep.
rip it, and put it at the net. And that's exactly what he did. That was a howitzer. I like that description a lot because they wasted no time getting that to the net. Um, it is important for them to have chemistry. I think Michelli will slowly and surely evolve into the player that most of us think he will be, which is an offensive point producer, a guy that's really important in terms of providing supplemental offense, especially in light of the loss of Mitchell Marner. So I thought, again, very good, and a guy that will continue to evolve and get better. Another step up the ladder for the Leafs.
And how do you feel about Cowan being optioned down to the AHL? Do you think they gave him a fair shake? I mean, there's some logistical reasons why that was done. You make room for Lawton. Michelli's back in the starting lineup. But do you think he got enough time in the NHL, got enough of a taste? I'm sure we'll see him again this season. But how do you feel about the Cowan situation right now?
The biggest thing, and I think Brad Treliving will understand that, and I think the coaching staff down in Toronto, obviously not that far from the go, will understand it. When a player gets sent down, it's all about mindset and about not thinking that he failed. And in this case, Easton Cowan didn't fail. It's a numbers game. He doesn't require waivers to go down. So it's really important, Kyle, that the Leafs management make sure he understands exactly what he needs to do to become more and more consistent for this organization and get his opportunity, not to play in the bottom six for the Leafs, which is where he was kind of playing, but to play in the top six for the Leafs. And if he can do that, and they can do that in particular, then he's going to be a real player. Do I think he got a fair shake? No, but most young players on deep rosters with high payrolls don't get those kinds of opportunities. They have to wait their turn. It's a very draconian and hard business, but I think eventually he's going to become a very important player for this team.
Yeah, he did seem to be getting more comfortable as he got more ice time in the big show, but I also understand why he ended up there, and we're going to see him again. It's
Oh,
not it's less of a comment on the way he was playing and his ability to play, more a comment of the current situation of the Leafs, and it's just, they don't it was just easier for them to send him down. So, the Leafs now have run off two in a row against two good hockey teams. Next game up, Boston in town.
mhm.
How important is it for the Leafs to kind of crawl out and string together 4, 5, 6, even if they don't win 6 games in a row or
Mhm.
7 games in a row, but to string together runs of excellent play this early in the season, stop the bleeding now sort of thing?
Really important, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's not just the Boston Bruins an original six matchup. It's a division matchup in a division right now that everybody's talking about being the hardest division to play in the National Hockey League. When you talk about the Atlantic, you look at the start of the Montreal Canadiens, you look at the start of the Ottawa Senators, you look at the way a lot of the teams, Florida and Tampa, started slowly. Tampa slowly starting to pick it up, playing really good hockey. Buffalo playing much better, putting points in the bank all the time. Detroit going out on the road and playing very, very well. This division is so tough. So I think it's really important for them to make this statement early on, kind of steady the ship and get going in the right direction. And I think the players understand that too. Tonight, I have to tell you, I don't know how much will be written about this, and I know it's not artistically beautiful to watch. But the shooting and retrieval game by Toronto after about the first 10 to 12 minutes was really appropriate. It was smart. And it forced a team that's not comfortable playing like that, Utah, into playing a full 200-foot game rather than a 100-foot game. And I think if the Leafs can start to evolve into that, it's going to help. And doing that against Boston would be really good.
It seems like they were game planned for that exact method tonight, and then they execute on the game plan. And there's been some sort of a disconnect this season between the talent's capability, the game plan set out for them, and their ability to execute it. But we saw that tonight. They played the right hockey game against the right team, and the Leafs coaching staff is clearly putting out good game plans. It's just on these guys to actually execute.
That's the biggest thing. Execution matters so much. And I think for Craig, more than anything else, getting comfortable with that center ice depth that we talked about. Because when you have that, you can trust people and you can play more people if you have that layered structure through the middle. So with Matthews, with Tavares, with Waugh, and obviously now with Scott Lawton, it makes a massive difference for this group. It makes everybody better. I thought Domi was having a ton of fun out there. He's running around. He was moving his feet. He's making things because he didn't have to play center. He didn't have to play down deep in his own zone. So you see that and you start to say, okay, there's going to be an identity on that line. And that's why I don't think you never heard me number the centers because I think from night to night, the lines and the depth's going to change because some nights your first line is going to be your fourth and your fourth line is going to be your first.
And I think that's fine for now because they definitely showed signs of chemistry. And I actually really love that you just mentioned that he appeared to be having fun because I noticed that on a lot of the Leafs tonight. They appeared to be a little bit more relaxed and
Mm.
content with their own abilities. And, even leading into the Penguins game in those first two periods, you could see them pressing. You've mentioned this on McGuire Monday with EJ and stuff. You could see them trying too hard. You can see them pressing to get this ship righted. And tonight, it's like they all just suddenly decided to relax. And this is the version of the hockey team with room for improvement, which we'll get to, that we expected to see coming into this season.
Very true. I think the biggest thing, Kyle, for this group in particular is to get their identity. They don't have it yet to understand exactly where everybody fits. And when you do understand where everybody fits, how much more fun it is to play the game.
Okay, so let's let go of all this good talk and fluffing them up. What do you still see out there that they have the most room to improve with moving through this season right now?
Coming out clean in their own zone. They spend much too far time spending fighting battles, excuse me, easy for me to say, fighting battles on the boards rather than moving the puck through the middle of the ice. They've got to get better going D to D with more pace. That'll open up more seams through the middle of the ice. They're spending way too much time on the boards in their own zone. That's got to get cleaned up. They desperately miss Chris Tanev. You can see that. You can see that in every situation. So, and this is not a knock on Philippe Myers at all. Philippe Myers did a nice job tonight. He played well. He's not Chris Tanev. When they get Tanev back, it allows McCabe to feel more comfortable in his position as a shutdown guy. So he's not trying to do too much with the puck. But I think the biggest thing is coming out of their own zone clean. That means defense moving the puck quicker. That means forwards moving their feet. That means guys supporting the puck. and doing a little bit of holding up. The one thing I can't believe I was watching this tonight. Utah reminded me of a team back in the 1990s where you could obstruct, hook, hold, and jam the neutral zone so you couldn't establish forecheck. They do that so well. It's amazing, and they never get called for it. They're really good at it. They must practice it. I know when I was coaching the league, we used to practice it all the time. But for Toronto, you'd like to see them move the puck more quickly out of their own zone. I think it'd be a lot better for their group.
Yeah, and Pierre, it's important to point out to the fan base, the version of this hockey team that we saw tonight, they're going to win a lot of regular season games, but everything you just mentioned are the keys to playoff success. Those little things, puck control, puck movement, all of those things, if they don't correct it, they're in for a short postseason. But the way they played tonight will get them there in the first place, but it won't be good enough to win.
No, it won't be, because they'll spend too much time in their own zone, Kyle. I completely agree with that too. And one of the things that you watch the next game against Boston. Boston likes to jam the net a lot. I think for Toronto, they're going to have to do a better job clearing the crease so Stolarz can see more pucks. And when he does see those pucks, him making good decisions whether to freeze it or move it. And when he does move it, getting that puck support so they get it up and out of their own zone much more quickly.
Yeah, those are all great points, Pierre. Well, we have to take a little dance around the NHL right now because, like I said, we don't miss milestones on this show. And Alex Ovechkin. And first of all, before I say another word, shout out to Mr. Mike Carver from our other network on the Bet Rivers Network, Betting Weekly Live at 5. He told sports bettors tonight to take Alex Ovechkin in prime time to score his 900th goal. And Alex Ovechkin did exactly that in the second period of tonight's hockey game. 900 goals, Pierre.
It's pretty amazing. I think I called probably 500 of those 900 because back in the day when I was at NBC in particular, there was Pittsburgh, Washington was on almost every single week. And he was so good. What's interesting about that goal tonight, it was scored from the right side of the ice, not the left side of the ice. Ovechkin's a right-hand shot. That's number one. Number two, the fact that he forced Jordan Binnington into a turnover, Kyle. And then the biggest thing is he didn't score on his forehand. He scored on his backhand. His nemesis throughout his entire career was a guy named Sidney Crosby. Most of Crosby's plays are on his backhand.
Yeah.
To see Ovechkin score his 900th on his backhand, I was like, there maybe is a hockey god out there.
you almost hope somewhere Sid was watching that game live and kind of had a little chuckle to himself because he's one of the best players playing off the backhand that I've ever seen in hockey. Yeah. It's an incredible milestone. He continues to pile them up, and how much longer is this guy going to go? Is this year it for him?
I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I just want to give him the respect he has when he wants to call a shot, he can call. But Kyle, I would tell you this. I've been around some pretty good players over the course of my career. I'm not sure I've ever seen a guy as motivated to score goals as Alexander Ovechkin. It's been amazing watching him as a 14-year-old on a Russian travel team play in Toronto, and he still wanted to score goals. Watching him as a 16-year-old in the World Junior in Halifax in 2003, scoring goals was amazing. Playing in the NHL, playing in the World Junior as a 17-year-old over in Helsinki, Finland, playing as an 18-year-old in Grand Forks, North Dakota, all these different things, Olympics, Stanley Cup playoff game. This guy was born to score, and his shot just overwhelming for so many years.
Just one of the best offensive machines. Well, I mean, by mathematically speaking, the best offensive machine we've ever seen, but an underrated overall hockey player. He's always been a pretty good all-around hockey player. He's a tough hockey player too. I think he's somewhere the all-time list for hits, if not first as well. Like his game is just as hockey has changed over the course of his career, he has perfectly matched those changes and adapted his gameplay style to the newer, more modern game.
I think there were two coaches that really did a good job with him, Kyle. One of them was Dale Hunter, because Dale would always preach to him about playing a 200-foot game, and he wasn't afraid to bench him. And the other one is a guy who won the Stanley Cup with, Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz really found a way to get to Ovechkin to make him into that complete player that you're just talking about, whether it was forechecking, back-checking, understanding the concepts of defense in the neutral zone. You didn't have to teach Ovechkin how to play offense, Cal. You had to teach him how to play away from the puck. And I think Dale Hunter did a real good job of that. And I think that Barry Trotz did an amazing job of that, so well, as a matter of fact, that they won the Cup in Washington in 2018, and Ovechkin played a huge role in that.
One thing we don't often see in the NHL, we see in other sports like baseball, is when a player announces their retirement, they receive all the gifts on the road. Hockey players are far too modest for that type of treatment. But man, it would be nice if teams would find ways to acknowledge him as we get towards the end, because if anyone in this generation deserves it, it is certainly Alex Ovechkin.
Oh my gosh, perfectly said. I hear to that. He made a lot of owners a lot of money too. He sold a lot of
Yes, he did.
tickets. He did. He sold a lot of tickets. I remember the day when he would leave and go out to Western Canada, or he'd go to the western part of the United States, right near the beginning of his career. And there were a lot of empty seats in some of those buildings. Not when Ovechkin came to town. He did an amazing job selling tickets both in Washington and on the road.
Salvatore Yanni in the chat says that Matthews will catch Ovechkin one day. I'm not 100% sure that anyone will ever catch Alex Ovechkin, but I do expect to see Matthews pretty far up the list. Let's close on Matthews again. He seemed a little off at the start of this season too. Are you seeing him kind of rounding into form right now? It appears that way, but I'm not 100% convinced.
You know what told me that? And I'm so glad you brought it up, Cal. At the start of the game, if you get a chance to go back and watch the tape, especially if you're a fan of the Leafs, watch the energy that he's playing with, watch the board domination, watch the second and third efforts to keep pucks alive in the offensive zone. That's a sign of a player that's starting to feel comfortable in themselves. I think there was a hesitation. I think there was almost a meekness to his game. I didn't see that tonight. He wanted to be a difference maker. He was a difference maker. And that extended shift where he gets the pass from Michelli and he howitzers the puck, to use your term, Kyle, that's a really good example of what he's all about. And so I do think he's starting to break through.
Yeah, Pierre, the way you described that as meekness, that's exactly what I was alluding to. And then tonight, it seemed to be once again stated that the older version of Austin Matthews seemed to be on the ice. He was good on the puck. He got it off his stick exactly as hard and as fast, howitzer, like some would say, on that goal. And I just think that's something the Leafs have been looking for. I think so many things happened in tonight's games that the fan base have been waiting for. Again, those four big guns. We don't use terms for any of their top players anymore because I believe Berube banned them. But four names you want to see on the score sheet regularly all got there tonight, and it almost felt like a breath of fresh air for this fan base.
Yep. And anytime they're winning games without Chris Tanev, honestly, that's huge. It's really important for them. People don't realize the value of this player. Because it's not about points with him. It's about stabilizing things. So you got to find ways to stabilize the game. And I found the Leafs' way of stabilizing the game tonight was not turning pucks over in the neutral zone, getting him in deep, engaging their speed, and going aggressive against Utah. And they did a magnificent job of it.
Do we have any word right now as to when exactly Tanev will be back in the lineup?
I think it's so hard to judge with players that have head trauma, and that's clearly what it was. It was a whiplash effect hit. And just to be fair, Matvei Michkov did not mean to do that. That's an unfortunate part of a hockey play. It really was.
It's a fast sport and it's a hard played sport, and those things are going to happen. I appreciated when I believe you were speaking to EJ about that and made it very clear that your thoughts were that was not intentional by any means. No. And it's just a hockey play that goes wrong for someone, and hopefully he'll be back in the lineup sooner than later. Pierre, any other notes from around the league that you saw tonight? Not sure what other games you might have.
Well, most of the games are starting a little late tonight.
Yeah,
so St. Louis, Washington, obviously had a keen eye in the Toronto game. I think the biggest thing I'm seeing in the league right now is the teams that start, Tampa in particular, teams started slow. They had a tough loss last night in Colorado, but they've won 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
They're starting to roll now. So pay attention to them. Washington beating St. Louis tonight, or leading against St. Louis tonight. Pay attention to them. The biggest one I'm having a hard time digesting, what's going on with the New York Rangers.
Especially at home.
At home, it's just unconscionable what's happening to them. And everybody thinks it's cute because they can't win at home, but they can win on the road. The problem is they're 84 points that are available. And if you don't win them, it's a problem. You're not making the playoffs.
It's inexplicable. And that's a good home barn to play in. I've seen games in Madison Square Garden. That is a good, well, I'm sure it's a terrible energy crowd now, but it's a good barn to play in. They typically they're not a bad hockey team, but at home they look like one of the worst teams in the NHL. They can't put the puck in the net.
I felt this summer that they didn't do enough shopping. They were pumping their team up about all the great players they had and all this and all that. And I was like, no, there's still that roster's void of something. And then you see some of their older guys, whether it's Abanajad, whether it's Panarin, they're not getting it done right now. The Kreider move, the Trouba move, they're gone. Okay, I'll cede them that. Nobody's replaced those guys, and that's a problem for them.
Well, somewhere one of our producers, Mr. Monzo himself, is absolutely desperate for us to end this conversation because a single tear rolls down his cheek as we discuss the facts of the matter with his favorite hockey team. So, Pierre, we'll leave it there. Toronto Maple Leafs 5-3 win over the Utah Mammoth tonight. They look pretty good doing it, folks, but they are not quite out of the woodwork yet. There's still some improvements. If you just tuned in, rewind this show. We discuss them all. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush.